Well, it's Wednesday, and you all know what that means. As you know, it's AEW Dynamite 250. This one, of course, features the AEW International on the line. As you know, Will Ospreay defends the title against MJF. And then, of course, we have Mercedes Moné defending the TBS title against Nyla Rose. And then finally, Okada, the current Continental Champion, will be facing off against the AEW World Champion Swerve Strickland. So there's going to be a lot of things that are happening on this particular day, but also we will be hearing from Mariah May explaining her actions, what she did last week when she turned on her mentor, Tony Storm. And then, of course, we cap up our episode with some news updates to give you guys updates what's been going on in the world of pro wrestling, such as what events promotions are thrown out, who's booked, what matches are set, and of course, some developments. So this is going to be our only review for today. But until then, let's just get ready for another episode of Deleted Wrestle Zone.
Are you ready? Get up, get up! 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 Get up, get up!
Hey everybody, welcome to Deleted Wrestle Zone, all things that is pro wrestling with AEW, NXT, New Japan Pro Wrestling, TNA, the National Wrestling Alliance, various promotions, wrestlers, matches, and championships. I am your host, Jay right here. So, if you are new to the channel, welcome. This is a channel where we do a lot of pro wrestling reviews from various promotions, not only here in the United States, but also in Japan, Mexico, Canada, Europe, the UK, anywhere in the world where pro wrestling is not as big, but it continues to grow. We also do discussion videos, talk about various topics such as the wrestlers themselves, the promotions, factions, storylines, whatever we want to talk about. We also do more news updates. If I'm unable to put information here on this episode, I can either put it on the next episode or on a separate video by itself. We also, of course, do real-timing news updates to keep you guys on alert if something has happened in the world of pro wrestling that needs to be addressed ASAP. We also do the Inagi Sayaka Watch and various other cool wrestling content as well. So if you like what you see, please subscribe to us so you'll be getting a lot of daily reviews and other cool wrestling content as well. But if you like this episode, please give us a like on the like button or a nice comment in the description down below. Now, all introductions I've set aside, so we only have one review for all of you, and I'll apologize at the end of this episode to explain why I'm only doing one. But as of right now, let's start with our very first one, our very only one we have for today, and that is AEW Dynamite 250. Alright, AEW Dynamite 250. It opened up with a title match for the AEW International Championship. Will Ospreay defends the belt against MJF. Now, this whole thing began, of course, when MJF made his return after being gone for several months due to an injury, and now that he's back. But however, he took a lot of he decided to give some huge criticism towards Will Ospreay. He thinks that Will Ospreay is not the face of AEW. He doesn't have what it takes to carry the company on his shoulder. So basically, that was it. And of course, he wasn't going to play by Will Ospreay's rules, so he decided he's going to, of course, challenge him for the International Championship. Now, you probably would have thought maybe this would have been a perfect finale, like, how to say, main event. I would have agreed. But however, a lot of things took place in this match. I mean, Ospreay, his arm that got misplaced because there was a moment, if you saw in picture, Doc Samson, the resident doctor there, had to pull his arm, which I know is a bitch, because I'm not a doctor and I don't know, I've never been in that type of situation, but I know for a fact it hurts. But I asked myself, why did it continue on while he's feeling this way? But it was a fantastic match. I don't know if MJF has ever been in a match where he has to go a lot longer, because the match itself went almost to an hour. It would have ended with a time limit draw. But however, the certain situation changed when, of course, MJF pushed Osprey towards the ref, and then, of course, he used the diamond ring to his advantage and knocked MJF out. No, I mean, Will Osprey out, and winning the title. But he was like, his entire body was exhausted. That he used one of those oxygen masks. I don't know if, but like I said before, I don't know if MJF has ever been in a match where he has to go a lot longer time. If you guys remember how Kenny was, when he went over an hour and against Okada back in Dominion a few years back, and I think it was in 2018. Yeah, in 2018. So we'll see what happens until then. Now, we do see, of course, an interview with Arkaby where she talks with Mark Briscoe, and then, of course, the Acclaim were there too, telling him that they want to join Team AEW, of course, because they got their issues towards, of course, the Elite, and not to mention they do get an opportunity of the AEW World Tag Team titles. So basically, of course, Mark Briscoe is allowing it, but however, Briscoe is willing to admit that he's not the one calling the shots. The one person that it is, of course, Swerve. Now, of course, Swerve knows that he has, you know, had some history with the Acclaim in the past. Same thing with the Briscoes. But however, this is now. So they ask him if they're ready for this, and of course they did. So I'm sure Swerve is happy to know he has a couple of people that agree with him that they need to represent AEW in any way possible. Now, we do see some TV time with the Learning Tree, Chris Jericho. Now, of course, Jericho had to explain that what he did to Hook, Shibata, and of course Job is because they refused to learn from Jericho. Now, you probably would have assumed something was about to happen, but what we did not anticipate is Minoru Suzuki surprising people. That was the most surprising thing we expected. Now, we do know, not before the Forbidden Door, Jericho asked Minoru Suzuki to be part of it, but he said no. He doesn't get this whole learning tree crap. That's what he was instigating the whole time. But however, he showed up, and then of course Taz noticed he had something pulled out of his pocket. Now, we don't know what it was, but later it was foretold that on Blood and Guts, Minoru Suzuki will be in a match against Chris Jericho for the FTW Championship. However, the contract indicated that Brian Keith and Redwood Big Bill, well, they're banned from ringside. And I don't think they anticipate that. And then, of course, Minoru Suzuki decided to give Jericho a headbutt. And then before he leaves, he goes, "Hi." He's trying to mock Jericho. But the real question is, should Jericho be more worried about Suzuki? If I was Jericho, I should. Because you don't have the learning tree by your side. You don't have you don't got Redwood or the Bad Apple. So that sets it up. So we'll see what happens. Now, of course, the Elite were paying attention to what Mark Briscoe, the Acclaim, and Swerve were talking about. And of course, the Bucks, on the other hand, they don't think that the Acclaim are going to be able to defeat them to strip off their belts. So that was pretty much what we did notice. However, we did see, of course, Mercedes Moné making her presence known to the EVPs. And of course, the Bucks said that they banned Britt Baker from the arena, from the backstage area. So that pretty much sets it up. However, of course, Okada, being a fan, decided to ask Mercedes Moné if he can do the Mercedes dance again. And of course, that's what happened. Now, let's jump in, of course, to the TBS Championship match. Now, Mercedes Moné put out an open challenge, and the person who responded is none other than the second ever AEW Women's Champion, Nyla Rose. Now, of course, Nyla Rose, you probably would assume a woman of her size would have dismantled Mercedes. That's exactly what she would have done, because Of course, you think of the female version of David versus Goliath. So that's always been one of those analogies I like to put out. But however, we did notice Mercedes Monet try to do the lockjaw. However, Nyla Rose actually bit her hand off. Now the thing is this: doing the lockjaw is not that simple. Tony Schiavone should know because he's like a father to Britt Baker, and he says she doesn't know how this thing works because Britt Baker is a dentist, and it's true. What does Mercedes know about the lockjaw? She did not have the perfect grip, exactly what, of course, Britt Baker would have done. But nope. But Nyla Rose was biting her hand. But when that did not work in her favor, she put, of course, Nyla in the crossface, and just like that, she tapped out. Now, while she was celebrating, she noticed a fan had something about Britt Baker. She grabbed it, ripped it, and I had a feeling who it was because that person was wearing a Sting mask, and it was Britt Baker who showed up. Now, I think the thing is that Tony Schiavone made an excellent point. She was banished from backstage, but no one said anything. She can't buy a ticket. So basically, the MVPs kind of, how do I say, did not anticipate that one way or the other. Now, as you know, there's been a lot of history between both Jack Perry and Darby Allin. Well, last week we saw Brandon Cutler get face paint and beat up by Jack Perry. Well, by Darby Allin. Now he gets beat up by Jack Perry. So he's trying to say that he's sacrificing Brandon Cutler for the greater good. But there was an exclusive video where, of course, first it was Christopher Daniels, then Darby Allin, and now Jack Perry. He feels like he needs a vacation. Well, poor Brandon Cutler. Well, that's what happened. Now, we were supposed to hear from Mariah May to give his explanation why. At first we thought it was Toni Storm, but however, if you look closely, it was in fact Mariah May as timeless Toni Storm. So, of course, many of us saw this one coming. We all knew that sooner or later that Mariah May was going to, of course, turn against her mentor, Toni Storm. So that was the whole thing. And now she feels like the spotlight is on her. Now, I want to put something out for all of you for what you don't know. Some of you may think, of course, that this whole thing was way too soon for Mariah May to turn against Toni Storm. But however, I want to put something out. Somebody actually commented about this on social media that this storyline between Mariah May and Toni Storm is resembling from a 1950s film called All About Eve. And let me pull that information out for all of you. So that way you can see the comparisons because the actual story does fit entirely well to it. Here it is. Okay. Of course, the story is about Eve Harrington, who enters the light of establishing herself as an actress with Margot Channing, who is, of course, someone who is at the top of the movie game. But however, she was introduced by Eve was introduced to, of course, Margot by one of her closest friend named Karen Richards. Now, if you compare it, it was RJ City who, in fact, introduced Mariah May to Toni Storm. So that kind of storyline did fit in to the whole thing. Now, of course, Eve meets Margot for the time as being a fan in the dressing room before her performance. That's exactly what Mariah did. So you look at how the storyline fits with it. Then, of course, Margot's maid Birdie was suspicious of Eve's intentions immediately. If you look at, of course, Luther, he was suspicious too. He had that strong feeling there was something odd. We know that was it. I mean, who could forget that towel situation where Mariah May was about to throw the towel, but it was Luther who, in fact, stopped her, and he got the blame for it. And, of course, Eve tries out Marco's costume while nobody is looking. Mariah does the same thing too, so it would make sense like that. And then, of course, Eve managed to become Margot's understudy, and that's the same thing what Mariah did. You know, she learned under and enters the OWN under the guidance of Tony, and of course we all know what happened. The spotlight goes to Eve. So basically, that's how they're intertwining the story. So I have to say, Well, I did find out who was the genius behind it, but that's going to be on our news update, so I'll get to that. Now, we'll see what happens at All In. Will Mariah May defeat Toni Storm, or will Toni Storm retain the belt? That's a very, very good question. Now, our main event is, of course, Kazuchika Okada versus Swerve Strickland. Of course, this was going to be a good match, but the Elite, as you know, that are trying to hurt Swerve because their idea now, they want the AEW World Title to be part of the Elite, to stay there forever. So they tried to attack him. Of course, the Acclaim showed up for a helping hand, so was Mark Briscoe, and then the one person that hated Swerve, Hangman. So things got out of hand between Hangman and Swerve, so they just left through the audience, leaving, of course, the Acclaim and Mark Briscoe in the ring, right there, and of course the Elite were right there. Cannot believe this is happening until Darby Allin showed up, and nobody expected that. So basically the fifth person is now Darby Allin. But however, during an exclusive interview that you only see on social media, the Elite were not happy. You know, they think that Darby Allin stole that whole rafter thing from Sting and all that. That he's a worthless piece of garbage for stealing his material. And of course, Jack Perry thinks that, they think this is a ragtag team that would defeat them. Well, you may never know if that ragtag team you think won't defeat them will defeat them. But we will see next week at Blood and Guts. So I think that's pretty much it, what we have for all the reviews, or should I say, our only review. Let's move on with our last and final thing, news updates. Okay, so welcome to our news update. So let's begin with upcoming events from the promotions. Now, you may remember recently WWE had a super show in Mexico. Well, it turns out later on this month they will have a super show as well in Japan. Now, they will be doing shows in both Osaka and Tokyo. The same thing they did in Mexico with, of course, with Mexico City and of course Monterrey. So that's pretty much it. But however, one match was advertised that I think it was interesting. Meiko Satomura will be teaming up with Bianca Belair and Jade Cargill to take on Damage Control. Io Sky, Kyrie, and Dakota. But of course, Asuka will be there. So that's pretty much what we do know. So that's the only match that will be advertised. But as we know that Julie is going to be in it, but we just don't know if she will be advertised. That's the thing we don't know, but we'll see. Now, Kitsune Women's Wrestling has announced for their Yerbai show taking place next month on the 18th of August. They have Kitsune making her appearance. So yeah, so there's an actual wrestler named Kitsune. So now it's that time of year again in Mexico with CML, the Grand Prix. This will take place on the 23rd of August. However, 5 names have been chosen to represent their respective countries, whatever promotions they're in. We have Kyle Fletcher, Robbie X, you may have seen him in Rev Pro, Rocky Romero, Flip Gordon, and Akudo Kwan. So those are the names involved in this. I'm pretty sure there'll be more. Now, as you all know, I mentioned Hanako. As you know, she'll be appearing doing a U.S. excursion for the entire month of August. She'll be finishing up doing some events in Stardom by the end of this month. As I mentioned before, she's already been booked for the New Japan Academy show in August 13th. However, another promotion has announced that she will be making her appearance, and that is, of course, Texas promotion, New Texas Pro Wrestling for the already Platinum. This will be on the 25th of August. So if I have any subscribers in the Texas area, if you're fans of Hanako, go check them out. Check her out. So get your tickets for that. So yeah, so we'll see what that leads us. Now, I did mention, as you know, about RJ, about the about the genius who was behind, of course, Mariah May. Tony Khan actually spoken on Sports Illustrated about RJ being the right hand and the genius behind the storyline between Mariah May and Tony Storm. So some of you may say, how is it she's a genius? Let me pull it up for you guys. This is something I think you don't want to miss out. This is what he says. RJ City has been his right hand in creating Tony Storm / Mariah May's storyline. My right hand is, and all this is RJ. He was the only person in the office who's seen All About Eve and Sunset Boulevard. He understood the old Hollywood and old movies. He's been so valuable and tremendous throughout the process. He has a great aptitude for wrestling, and he's also able to use movies for inspiration. I once said this on social media with my friends. Whoever thought of the idea of this storyline with Mariah May and Tony Storm deserves a raise and an award. So I say that's RJ. Now, of course, Tony Khan even continues more about Mariah May. He said he had discussions with Brian Danielson about, of course, about Mariah May, and this is what he said. Brian Danielson and I were flying home from Double or Nothing, and we were talking about wrestling, and what struck us as Brian asked, "Have you seen Mariah?" And I said I had, and I was amazed at how very quickly she's becoming at the top star in Stardom. We both agreed that she was very polished and charismatic. So basically, they had thoughts of hiring her, and of course, he said that Tony Khan took place on May of 2023, keeping a close eye on Mariah May, while during her time in Stardom. But of course, he actually had this idea to have her with the storyline. So it makes perfect sense why. So it's a good thing that he had his eyes set on that. Now, not too long ago, we are going to talk about, of course, Starlight Kid. Now, as you know, Starlight Kid started a new unit with Miyu Amasaki, Azumi, Suzuki, and Meisira. But she talked about what's the concept of this group. And this is what she said. I want the five of us to change the world of professional wrestling. Up until now, many new units have emerged without any real concept. But we have a concept to bring from the same generation. Azumi, Miyu, myself, including, want to get back at Oedo Tai, and I think we're a meaningful unit. So basically, she felt like wrestlers from generation is a perfect concept. I mean, yeah, they are from the same generation. She even talked about, of course, deciding that about continuing with the mask. Now, remember, she was considering removing it, but this is what she said. When I thought about working with people in my generation, I felt that with these members, I could repaint the color of Stardom in one go. Since I would have an impact, I thought there would be no need to take off my mask. There are no other wrestling women besides me, so I thought it would be wrong to throw it away, my greatest weapon. I have no intentions of taking off my mask at all right now, so I'm going to take the top spot while wearing my mask. So basically, she felt now with this new unit, there's no need. But however, of course, the idea of her taking off her mask, it was, of course, in case if she decides to join Tam Nakano and the Cosmic Angels. So now we know it's not going to happen, so that's pretty much it. Now, some of you may saw that Darby Allin actually came out from the rafters. I know on social media, especially on the X account, some people think it was stupid. But however, AEW asked Martha Hart permission about this because we all know how she feels when it comes to wrestlers coming down from the rafters. That will always haunt her because of her husband. And of course, she got their blessing. And it's great that AEW does have a fantastic relationship with Martha Hart. I know they don't want to hurt her, they don't want to reignite old wounds. So it's great that they're asking her permission, only when it fits perfectly. So, but yeah. Now, as you all know, recently there is a sort of an alliance in the Japanese pro wrestling scene called the United Japan Pro Wrestling. So basically, there's promotions like New Japan, Noah, DDT, and all these other promotions, especially others. They just had discussions in a meeting today, or something like that. But yes, I think there's a photo of that. But yeah, so there was also women's representation like Stardom, Tokyo Pro Wrestling, and World Woman Pro Wrestling. Diana was there too. So basically, some things are going on in the meeting we don't know. I'm sure we may see another all together event, but who knows? Nothing too specific on what's the business idea, but all we know is they met up once again. So we'll see what happens until then. But as of right now, we will just end things right here with our news updates and call it a day. Well, I hope everybody enjoys this episode. Coming up, as you know, we have Ring of Honor and TNA. Haven't decided yet if there was going to be any other reviews I want to do. I know there's certain events I haven't seen just yet. But first things first, right now, I want to apologize to everybody. Initially, I was planning to do another review or two for this episode, but however, due to some circumstances in my personal life, I was unable to do so. So we'll see what happens on the next episode. So I may have to wing it once again. So until then, just enjoy this episode, and I'll see you guys the next time. So I must bid all of you adieu. So goodbye, and have a nice day.